Amazing twist. A black farmer saved a man from a wreck, discovering he was a hidden billionaire. Jimmy stood at the edge of his farm, staring down the browning rows of corn, feeling the weight of their failure. Each sunrise seemed to mock his efforts, a fiery orb in the sky, illuminating the thinning stalks, the dry earth crackling underfoot. His hands, worn and calloused from years of hard labor, instinctively reached for the seeds he carried, yet doubt gnawed at him. What if this year was different? What if this year he couldn't provide for his family? Just as his grandmother's voice echoed in his mind, telling tales of resilience against an unforgiving world, the fear bubbled beneath his skin. He needed a miracle. The soil needed rain, a lifeline to pull them from the brink. As he moved toward his truck, eager to sell a meager harvest at the market, a loud pop shattered the quiet of midday. He turned, heart racing, instincts kicking in. A sleek silver car sped past, then suddenly veered off the road, tires screeching, a wrenching twist of fate sending it tumbling into a ditch. Smoke plumed upward as metal crumpled, and Jimmy's breath caught in his throat. He didn't think, he just acted. The rush to the smoking wreckage felt surreal. He didn't hesitate, dragged the driver out, his own body screaming in protest as flames licked at the car's frame. The man was disheveled but alive, a messy blend of riches and desperation. The realization of their differences fell hard upon him, yet they both lay on the dirt just beyond the fiery wreck, bruised and broken. Days passed, and as Robert recovered in a small guest room next to the farmhouse, Jimmy's thoughts became a tangle of anxiety and anger. The man embodied opportunity, yet carried the weight of moral conflict. Why hadn't he thought twice before offering help? On the one hand, Robert's presence stirred feelings of hope. Could he save the farm, bring the rains with dollar bills? On the other, Jimmy's ancestors whispered doubts, the corrupt nature of wealth. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Working side by side, sweat mingling as they tended to the farm, Jimmy's tension simmered. Robert asked questions, wanting to learn, but with every answer, deeper truths emerged that twisted Jimmy's gut. Was he merely a charity case in Robert's eyes, a line item in a ledger of redemption? And would he be sacrificing integrity for a lifeline? Evenings were the hardest, watching the sun dip below the horizon while he felt the weight of his father's dreams crushing him from all sides. Could he truly trust Robert? Their worlds had collided so violently, yet here they were, intertwining amidst the decay. As Robert set his approval upon Jimmy's crops, Jimmy's heart raced with the fear of what that trust might cost. As night fell, enveloping them in a cloak of darkness, the silence hung heavy. They stood at a precipice. What would they become when everything reckoned, torn between unyielding pride and alien desperation? The delicate line dividing help from exploitation blurred. The moral agony pulsated, leaving them each grappling with unasked questions. Would Jimmy find the strength to navigate these turbulent waters, or would Robert's past sway the hope he dared to glimpse? The following morning, Jimmy awoke with a knot of tension tightly coiled in his stomach. The scent of coffee wafted through the air, inviting yet taunting. He tossed back the blankets, determined to face another day filled with uncertainty and unease. The sun broke through the window, casting long shadows that trickled across the floor and reminded him of the promise of new beginnings. But with every step to the kitchen, the heavy weight of last night's thoughts clung to him. Robert sat at the table, poring over paperwork, his brow furrowed in concentration. Jimmy's heart sank. Here was the embodiment of his conflict. This man, a hidden billionaire, was likely accustomed to swift resources and instantaneous solutions. Yet in this small kitchen, surrounded by the modest remnants of a family's simple life, that power felt both distant and dangerously close. "Morning, Jimmy," Robert greeted him, glancing up with a smile that seemed genuine, layered with gratitude for the second chance at life. But beneath that smile was a lingering doubt in Jimmy's heart. Could this man truly understand the blood, sweat, and tears that nourished the earth beneath their feet? "Morning," was all Jimmy managed to reply, pouring himself a cup of the bitter brew. Silence enveloped them like a thick fog. Each man wrestled with his thoughts as Robert shuffled, organizing the papers spread out like a map of a future neither could fully see. It sparked a sense of urgency in Jimmy. The stakes were rising, yet he felt himself frozen, caught in the firestorm of internal conflict. "Listen, I've been thinking," Robert started, hesitating. He looked Jimmy in the eye, a flash of determination igniting. "I want to invest in your farm." The words echoed in Jimmy's mind, reverberating in the vast silence. Expectations bubbled within him. This could be the lifeline, saving generations of effort and hope. But the other side of the coin loomed ominously. "What do you want in return?" he shot back, the sharpness in his tone revealing more than just defensiveness. Robert's expression shifted. "I want to help you grow. I want to bring what I can to the table. You deserve a chance." With each passing moment, Jimmy felt himself wrestling an invisible demon, one that lashed out at his years of labor, years that had taught him to be self-sufficient, resilient, and wary of those offering too good to be true promises. Could he trust this man whose fortune had been shielded from the struggles of the working class? Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the old barn doors, and Jimmy turned his gaze to the stark horizon. "Sometimes help comes from the places we least expect it," his grandmother's voice whispered through the folds of his memory. But what if accepting help meant compromising his dignity? "Look," he pointed out, "you don't know what it's like to stand here day in and day out, pouring yourself into the soil and not knowing if it'll yield anything." "I may not," Robert countered, crossing his arms defiantly, "but I want to learn. I want to work, to understand what it takes to make this place thrive." Something flickered inside Jimmy, a glimpse of the hope buried under insurmountable doubt. If he dared to let this fragmented idea of partnership take root, would he be planting the seeds for a new future or surrendering his identity? Moments passed where time hung thick like heavy mist, and as the stark reality set in, Jimmy realized the decision looming before him was about more than just an investment. It was about the essence of who he was and what he was willing to sacrifice. Just then, Robert's phone buzzed unexpectedly, breaking the tension, the screen illuminating an unscheduled call. As Robert answered, the uneasy atmosphere doubled down on Jimmy. An unexpected shift loomed, a turn that might propel them both into unforeseen territories. With uncertainty swirling like autumn leaves caught in a gust, Jimmy braced himself for the new chapter of his life unfolding. What news would Robert receive that might change their fragile alliance forever? Jimmy leaned against the countertop, the chipped wood cool against his back, as he tried to parse Robert's sudden transformation from high-flying businessman to someone willing to break bread at his modest table. The phone call summoned a whole new level of reality, one where undeniable consequences lurked, ready to swoop in and alter the landscape of his life. Robert's voice fell into a low, serious tone as he spoke into the receiver, eyes fixed somewhere beyond the window, revealing a vulnerability as if he were grappling with a burden Jimmy could not yet fully understand. Each word exchanged seemed to resonate with a gravity that deepened the tension in the air around them. This was not just a simple conversation. The stakes, he could feel, were about to rise. Jimmy's pulse quickened as snippets of the fragmented dialogue caressed his ears. The name of an investor dropped, dollar amounts carefully articulated, urgency infused into each syllable. It felt like the final moments of a dramatic poker game, where each player sweated bullets as they awaited the reveal of the cards. Fortunes hung in the balance. Yet beneath the surface of this burgeoning alliance lay a menacing question. What would happen if he accepted Robert's help and the cards turned against him? The thought festered, clawing at the edges of his consciousness. Could he live with the knowledge that he'd traded a piece of his soul for some financial security? The air was charged with potential danger, but it also crackled with opportunity, a duality that drove his mind to ponder the intricacies of human connection. As Robert hung up, a subtle shift occurred in his demeanor. The weight on his shoulders seemed to lift momentarily, replaced with a fractured yet hopeful smile. "Sorry about that," Robert said, running a hand through his hair. "Had to line up some funding to get projects going faster than I anticipated. If we play this right, we could transform the farm into something remarkable." The word remarkable taunted Jimmy, igniting conflicting emotions. As he leaned in closer to the table spread with planning notes, a question loomed larger than the papers themselves. Was remarkable defined by grand success, or simply a genuine reflection of hard-earned labor visible in every furrow of earth? "Transform how?" he asked, voice low but firm. Robert stepped closer, his excitement about possible innovations radiating like warmth. "With an infusion of capital, we can upgrade the irrigation system, implement sustainable practices, even tap into organic markets. Your reputation as a dedicated farmer could become the cornerstone of a brand aligned with community values, resonating with consumers who care." Vision danced across Jimmy's mind, intertwining with his skepticism. He could see it: vibrant fields, morning sun sparkling off leaves, even children from neighboring towns getting fresh produce from their local hero. But echoed warnings from his past flared like unwelcome sirens. What if this was just smoke and mirrors, leaving him shackled to unmanageable expectations and crushing debts? "I need time to think," he finally replied, his resolve reforming like a protective shell around his vulnerability. Robert's expression shifted slightly, an acknowledgment of the apprehension swirling in the room, but the glimmer of hope for collaboration remained intact. "Of course, but remember, every day you wait to decide, someone might swoop in, changing the landscape without you." The urgency of his warning hung in the air, turning Jimmy's mind into a tempest. As he processed the implications, he felt a burgeoning sense of responsibility not just to himself, but to his family legacy. It wasn't merely about the farm anymore. It transcended that. He was wrestling with the very essence of his identity, anchored to the land and the heritage steeped in toil, grit, and pride. With a heavy heart, yet somehow emboldened spirit, he nodded in reluctant acceptance. "I'll consider it. I need more than just words." Jimmy stepped away, retreating to the familiar solace of outside. The fields greeted him with their honest openness, an invitation to ponder his choices, respite from the whirlwind brewing in the kitchen. Before him lay the broad expanse of the land he loved, waiting for him to decide how, if at all, he would allow it to be changed. As he stood there, a quiet determination flickered within him. He needed a plan, a strategy that would reflect his values while navigating the tenuous path Robert had opened. But even then, a darkness loomed in the back of his mind. Had he just walked into a trap, or was this truly a chance for growth? Just as dusk began to settle, a figure appeared on the horizon, silhouetted against the dwindling light. Jimmy squinted, the gnawing instinct to question sparking anew. Who was coming now, and what did it mean for the fragile alliance beginning to form? The figure moved closer, resolving into the shape of a woman with purposeful strides. Jimmy's heart raced, not only because he recognized her, but because she symbolized both the past he clung to and the future that seemed increasingly uncertain. Claire, his high school classmate, had always tangled with ambitions far loftier than those of their shared rural upbringing. As she neared, the twilight cast shadows on her face. A mixture of determination and concern etched across her features. "Jimmy, I didn't think I'd find you here. I wanted to check on you after hearing about the farm," she said, the tension filling the air between them like the thick summer heat. He forced a smile, greeting her in a tone that masked his inner turmoil. "Yeah, it's been a ride. How about you? Still hustling in the city?" Claire chuckled, a sound reflective of both nostalgia and a reminder of the life choices that had diverged their paths. "You could say that. I've been working in sustainable agriculture advocacy, not far from what you're doing." The mention of sustainability struck a chord. It mirrored Robert's ambitions, yet Claire's approach felt less fraught with risk. She embodied the purpose-driven kind of success Jimmy had always wanted to emulate, unclouded by the uncertainties he faced with the looming proposition from Robert. "Did you come to offer advice?" he asked, meeting her gaze. "I'm here to offer help, no strings attached. I know how slippery this industry can be, especially with investors looking for a quick return." Her eyes glimmered with sincerity, and for a moment he felt the weight of his choices lift under her supportive gaze. Help. The word hung on his lips, heavy with implications. What kind of help? "I can assist you in mapping out a strategy that aligns with your values. We can talk to the community, assess what your goals actually mean for people who depend on this land." She stepped closer, her intent clear. "You don't have to do this alone." Jimmy's heart swelled, and for the first time, hope began to crack through his internal barriers. The idea of engaging with Claire ignited a flicker of what could be, a partnership grounded in shared ideals rather than the cutthroat world Robert represented. Yet uneasiness shadowed the warmth blooming in his chest. Could she truly grasp the depth of what was at stake? He hesitated, torn between leaning into this new alliance and the innate instinct to protect what was his. "I appreciate that, Claire, but—" His voice faltered momentarily. "I don't want to waste your time. Robert's got investors, plans." "Plans that might not align with what you want," she interjected, her tone sharpening. "You'd be compromising on your vision for a few bucks. Is that the legacy you want? A remarkable farm built on shaky foundation?" Her challenging words hit him hard, forcing him to confront the magnitude of the dilemma he faced. He balanced precariously at this crossroads. The fleeting possibility of self-definition began to take root. "So, what would you propose?" he asked, the sincerity in her eyes coaxing him back to purpose. "We start small but real. A community initiative with true sustainability at its core. We can showcase the farm as a model for what meaningful growth looks like. You wouldn't just transform your farm, you'd inspire others. No investor required." As the last of the sunlight dipped below the horizon, casting a dramatic glow around them, Jimmy found himself standing at a decisive juncture. Could he muster the courage to reject Robert's alluring offer and invest in a path defined by authenticity instead? "The time has come to face who I want to be," he murmured, barely audible. Claire nodded, sensing his shift. "Let's take it back to the roots, Jimmy. It's your story to write. Tell me what that looks like." A mixture of exhilaration and trepidation thrummed in his veins. The future lay before him, vast and undetermined. But just as he was about to respond, a distant sound of engines roared through the quiet evening. Instinctively, he turned, and the sight made his blood run cold. Headlights cutting through the darkness, approaching fast along the dusty road. An unsettling realization gripped him. This unexpected arrival could change everything, challenging the choices he had yet to solidify and testing the bonds he was just beginning to explore. What was coming down that road, and how would it impact the fragile alliance forming between him and Claire? The headlights blazed towards him, illuminating the shadows and refracting the stillness of the evening. Jimmy's heart raced, not just from the sudden intrusion, but from the realization that everything was about to shift. Claire's expression mirrored his concern. The air around them thickened with uncertainty. "Who is it?" Claire asked, taking a cautious step back, gauging the approaching vehicle like a deer in headlights. "I don't know." Jimmy's voice was barely a whisper, anxiety tightening his throat. The growing roar of the engine became an intrusive pulse, urging him to act, yet he remained frozen, caught in the moment. The vehicle staggered to a halt, dust swirling in the glow of the headlights. A door swung open, and out strolled a figure he recognized, a local businessman, Dominic, known for parlaying small enterprises into sizable fortunes. Unsettling whispers surrounded Dominic. His allure was magnetic, but so was the predatory nature of his ambition. "Hey, Jimmy," Dominic shouted with a boisterous laugh that felt out of place amidst the tension. "I heard you were in a pinch. Thought I'd come check it out." "Not sure how you got that idea," Jimmy responded, hoping his voice carried more confidence than he felt. "Word travels fast in this town, my friend. Everyone's speculating about your farm's future. Such a shame, really." Dominic stepped forward, his gaze falling on Claire. "And who's this? Your secret weapon?" "This is Claire," Jimmy interjected, unwilling to reveal the vulnerability creeping into his openness. "Help, huh? With all the buzz about investors? You'd be better off with someone who knows how to play the game." Dominic's sly smile betrayed his agenda. "I'll make you an offer you can't refuse." A wave of frustration surged through Jimmy. Was this what his life would become? Torn between the aspirations he held dear and the tantalizing promises hastily offered by someone so frequently distrusted? Dominic continued, not waiting for a response, every word woven with the intent to ensnare. "Listen, Jimmy, I get it. You're in over your head. But I can assure you I can inject your farm with some serious cash flow. Imagine the potential you could unlock. No need to struggle." Dominic turned on the charm, laced with a hint of arrogance. "It's time to be pragmatic." With every phrase, Jimmy felt a tightening in his chest, a suffocating squeeze of doubt. What would Robert think if he saw him now, taunted by a different kind of offer? The allure of that tempting financial security clashed violently with the principles Claire had illuminated only moments prior. His instincts screamed to reject the opportunism before him, yet the uncertainty clawed at the edges of his resolve. "Look," Jimmy finally managed, drawing the conversation back to his reality. "I appreciate the concern, but I want to do this my way. It's not just about cash, it's about integrity." Dominic chuckled, amusement dripping from his words. "Integrity? In agriculture? That's a quaint notion, but let's not forget who holds the keys to success. You won't make an impact without capital, and I can provide that." He glanced sideways at Claire, his demeanor shifting as a flicker of judgment crossed her face. "Or you could stick with your little friend here and continue working on your vision while the rest of the world goes on without you." The sting of his words ignited something within Jimmy, a visceral recognition that came to define him. The clash of ambition, self-worth, and integrity reverberated through the night air. He had to choose. "Thanks, but I'm not interested," Jimmy replied, steadying his gaze on Dominic. "I'm building something real here, something that matters, more than just a return on investment." Dominic's face hardened, his confidence faltering momentarily. "Suit yourself. Just remember, there's a fine line between romantic ideals and harsh realities." As Dominic retreated to his vehicle, a simmering tension hung in the air. Jimmy turned to Claire, an unspoken bond forming between them amidst the aftermath of that encounter. A wave of determination washed over him. This moment became a defining crossroads. "What do I do now?" he asked, feeling the decision weigh down on him. "Own it," Claire responded, her words a catalyst for resolve. "This is your moment, Jimmy. Define what success looks like for you." But even as clarity began to take shape, Jimmy sensed something deeper lurking, his past merging with the future he craved. The road ahead was still unknown, and navigating it would be fraught with challenges he hadn't yet anticipated. Just then, the sound of rumbling engines echoed again, this time in the distance, hinting that a storm was brewing on all fronts. What would come next, and how would it impact the fragile roots he was trying to establish? The precarious position he found himself in demanded that he confront not only the external pressures, but the internal battles he had yet to face. Growing uneasy, he realized his biggest challenge had only just begun. The following days felt like a heady whirlwind for Jimmy. He rose with the sun, thoughts racing as he mulled over Dominic's offer and Claire's encouragement. The farm beckoned, its life force intricately tied to his aspirations, yet fraught with uncertainty. Jimmy found solace in tending to the fields, planting seeds both in the earth and in his mind. There was a profound satisfaction in the act of creation, but the specter of failure loomed like a dark cloud. Jimmy's newfound resolve forced him to assess not just his farming methods, but his overall approach to life. As he dug his hands into the rich, dark soil, he felt connected to his family's history, the weight of their sacrifice pushing him toward a deeper understanding of his own legacy. Robert's voice echoed in the recesses of his mind, urging him to elevate his efforts through innovation and sustainability. Jimmy recognized now that he needed radical changes to transform the farm beyond mere survival. Late that afternoon, Claire joined him. The rhythm of planting placed them in a shared bubble of purpose, and with each seed sown, Jimmy articulated his vision for the farm. "We could implement crop rotation, diversify our products. There's a growing market for organic produce. If we do this right, we won't just survive, we'll thrive." Claire watched him with a mix of admiration and concern, her intuitive mind dissecting his enthusiasm. "You talk about thriving like it's a certainty. What if it doesn't work the way you envision?" Her question struck a chord. Fear mingled with ambition, tugging at the edges of his determination. "What's the alternative? Surrendering to the pressure of someone like Dominic? I won't let that define me. I want this to be a legacy, not a transaction." Yet doubt clung to his spine. Was he truly capable of executing such a radical shift? He caught glimpses of possibility, but they slipped through his fingers like water. Could he initiate change with no safety net beneath him? That evening, he returned home, skin still warm from the sunlight, yet a chill crept into his heart. He opened his laptop, staring at the glowing screen like it was an abyss. The numbers from his last harvest nagged at him, expenses piled like bricks, threatening to crush his dreams. Unsurprisingly, he found himself pulling up online courses in sustainable agriculture and business management. Each click was an affirmation, a promise stitched closer to his aspirations. With a cup of coffee beside him, the late-night hours morphed into a frenetic blur of learning and exploration. He consumed information, jotting notes and sketching out plans for crop diversification and renewable energy sources. Something within him sparked, igniting latent confidence. He could do this. The idea began to crystallize, a model farm, a true representation of sustainability, with a reputation for quality and environmental stewardship. The following morning greeted Jimmy with balmy skies, and he felt an urgent need to act. Spurred by the convergence of possibility and clarity, he decided to reach out to fellow farmers via a network he discovered, seeking advice and collaboration. This step beyond his isolation was frightening, yet exhilarating. It lit a fire in his belly that warmed him against the creeping doubts. As he sat cross-legged in his backyard, phone in hand, he pondered how many others felt just like him. Burdened by expectations, yet yearning to turn their histories into narratives of triumph. Tapping the screen, he hesitated, the experience of reaching out coating his thoughts with uncertainty. What if they criticized him? What if they dismissed his ideas? Bracing himself, he sent the message. "Hi, I'm Jimmy. I'm building something new with my farm and seeking like-minded individuals to share ideas and strategies. Anyone interested?" As he sent the message into the digital ether, a sense of release washed over him, mingling with the familiar terror of vulnerability. However, he knew he could not retreat. The threshold had been crossed. The challenge was no longer solely internal, but also external. He was ready to stand up, to advocate for a new narrative rooted not only in heritage, but bold innovation. But clarity met chaos as his phone vibrated to life. There lay an unexpected message from an unfamiliar number, a text that could change everything. The words spilled into his consciousness like a wild river, brimming with promise yet cloaked in mystery. "I'd like to meet. I believe we could help each other." Who could this be? What did they want? As excitement surged, he found himself teetering on the edge of opportunity once more. Was he ready to step into a bigger world where the ripple effects of his choices would resonate far beyond his initial intentions? The answer was looming, and an unseen door was about to swing wide open. Jimmy's heart raced as he read the message again, a mixture of curiosity and apprehension gnawing at him. "I'd like to meet." The simplicity of the words contrasted sharply with the weight they carried. Who was the sender, and what could they possibly want? The enigma of the situation felt like a puzzle, tantalizingly just out of reach. For all his determination to change the trajectory of his life and the farm, he grappled with the fear of being drawn into something that could spiral beyond his control. After a brief internal debate, Jimmy pressed his fingertips against the screen. Sure, when and where? The message was sent with an urgency that mirrored his racing thoughts. He needed guidance, and perhaps this stranger could provide a critical piece of the puzzle he was trying to solve. He opted to keep the longing for culinary arts or affecting change in farming at bay, while focusing on the potential that this meeting might hold for practical matters. Later that day, while tending to his crops, the vibrant greens seemed to leer at him, as if the plants whispered cautionary tales of uncertainty and premature excitement. Despite plunging deeper into his educational pursuits, he hadn't yet made tangible changes on the farm, and that gnawed at him. The uncertainty felt heavy, almost suffocating. Jimmy wiped sweat from his brow, his mind flickering back to the myriad seeds he'd planted not only in the soil, but in his ambitions. They needed nurturing, but he was far from sure if he had cultivated the right environment. At last his phone chimed. A reply from the mysterious stranger arrived. "Let's meet at 3 p.m. tomorrow at Tully's Cafe." The mere name conjured fond memories of shared space and laughter, but now it felt cold, a stage where he might lay bare his vulnerability. He typed a quick confirmation and stared down at the farmland again, a battleground where fears and desires clashed like titans. The hours that followed dragged endlessly, as anticipation and doubt gnawed at him. Despite the fear clawing at his insides, he took incremental steps towards fortifying his vision. He spent the evening revisiting his online coursework, repeatedly highlighting strategies for sustainable farming. The more he learned, the more empowered he felt. This knowledge was the armor he needed against the uncertainty of the road ahead. As night deepened, his mind spiraled into potential scenarios. Would this new contact share insights that could revolutionize his plans? Or would they be another voice of skepticism that made him question his motives? The night passed with fitful sleep, his dreams a medley of anxious thoughts and fleeting glimpses of transformed fields brimming with life. Morning came, and he donned his best clothes, an odd mix of practicality and yearning for confidence as he prepared for the meeting. The air was laced with the scent of blooming plants, a stark reminder of his aspirations. Each step to Tully's felt like navigating an invisible cliff, the unknown depths drawing him forward against his will. As he entered the cafe, the familiar blend of roasted coffee and baked pastries wrapped around him in a warm embrace, yet the living pulse of his heartbeat echoed in his ears. He scanned the room, searching for the figure who could hold the key to his future. And then, at a corner table, he saw someone who matched the text's casual eloquence, a man in a crisp shirt with an air of calm authority. Taking a deep breath, Jimmy approached, every muscle coiling with anticipation and uncertainty. "Hi, I'm Jimmy," he said, the words spilling out, colored by both excitement and trepidation. The stranger looked up, a smile breaking across his face, but it was the glimmer of something else in his eyes that sent a jolt of realization through Jimmy. This wasn't just a chance encounter. It felt like the beginning of a journey unpredictably intertwined with destiny. "Nice to meet you, Jimmy. I've heard a lot about you. I think we have a lot we can share." In that moment, that simple phrase transformed Jimmy's anxiety into eagerness. What began as a mere inquiry morphed into something potentially life-altering. The dialogue that followed could redefine everything, but only if he had the courage to seize the opportunity and navigate the uncharted territory ahead. As they exchanged introductions, Jimmy silently resolved to keep his defenses lowered, ready to explore whatever lay beyond the surface of this meeting. Little did he know, the conversation that unfolded would shake the foundations of his understanding of not just farming, but of life itself. What secrets were lurking beneath the surface? The air buzzed with an electric charge as Jimmy prepared to discover the unexpected, unknowingly inviting an immensity of change into his world. As they settled into their conversation, Jimmy found himself grappling with an unusual blend of openness and guardedness. The man introduced himself as Nathan, a consultant with a reputation for transforming struggling farms into thriving enterprises. Jimmy didn't just yearn for guidance, he craved assurance that he wasn't alone in his quest. Each word Nathan spoke felt both like a lifeline thrown out and a flash of light illuminating something deep within Jimmy, a sense that his dreams might not be just dreams after all. "I believe," Nathan began, leaning forward slightly, "that every farm has untapped potential. The key is recognizing what you have and knowing how to adapt it to the changing world. Tell me, what's your biggest challenge right now?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. Jimmy hesitated, his thoughts rattling around like loose change. Should he divulge the extent of his worries, the dwindling funds, the unpredictable weather patterns, the ghosts of inherited failures? Instead, he chose the most immediate concern. "I want to shift towards sustainable practices, but I'm not sure how," he admitted, almost ashamed of his hesitance. Nathan nodded thoughtfully, his gaze penetrating. Transformation doesn't have to be a leap into the dark. It can be a series of small, deliberate steps. Have you considered soil health management or integrating renewable energy? The mention of those ideas ignited a flicker of excitement in Jimmy. He'd been buried under theories and academic lessons, yet the practical application felt like a world away. As Nathan spoke, explaining concepts with refreshing clarity, it dawned on Jimmy that his learning wasn't a burden, it was his arsenal. With each new strategy Nathan introduced, Jimmy's fear began to morph into a burgeoning sense of empowerment. As they discussed potential changes, Jimmy felt layers of self-doubt peeling away like paint from an old barn. Nathan's enthusiasm was infectious. "You're closer to success than you think," he insisted, "and you have natural instincts. Trust them." The compliment struck a chord in Jimmy. For too long, he had focused on what he lacked: funds, experience, contacts, while neglecting the instincts that guided him toward this moment. Could it be that he had underestimated himself? That perhaps he was more capable than he had ever acknowledged? Each new piece of insight Nathan shared opened Jimmy's mind to possibilities he hadn't dared to envision. Their conversation danced through ideas, from crop rotation to community-supported agriculture, until Jimmy's pulse quickened with each prospect. This wasn't merely an exchange of knowledge, it was a revelation of self, a rediscovery of latent ambition he hadn't fully embraced. But as Nathan's words wove a tapestry of hope, Jimmy's internal fears resurfaced. What if he couldn't implement these strategies? What if he failed again? The tension in his gut prickled ominously, contrasting starkly with the excitement of discovery. Would the insights offered by Nathan prove to be tools for growth, or would they serve as reminders of his inadequacies? Failures aren't just setbacks. They can be lessons, Nathan explained, as if reading Jimmy's thoughts. Embrace them. They refine your approach and sharpen your vision. A challenge flickered within those words, igniting a determination in Jimmy. Failure had been his past, but it didn't need to dictate his future. He resolved then and there to confront his anxieties head-on and perceive them not as limitations, but as opportunities to learn ironclad lessons. With an invigorated sense of purpose, he leaned forward, engaging Nathan with fervor. Ideas cascaded between them like storms bringing rain to parched earth. Yet a thought lingered at the back of Jimmy's mind. Where did Nathan's expertise stem from? And what were his own motives hidden beneath this mentor-like charm? Moments turned into hours, and the cafe, once a backdrop of warmth, transformed into a crucible of transformation. Just as the conversation reached a crescendo, Nathan leaned back, a contemplative smile spreading across his face. But before we dive deeper into these plans, I must ask you something crucial, something I believe will redefine the direction of your journey here. Jimmy's heart thudded as he waited for Nathan to unveil whatever awaited him, a revelation or perhaps a defining challenge that would coax him further into the depths of both uncertainty and potential. What did Nathan see that Jimmy could not yet grasp? As curiosity crackled between them, Jimmy realized that this moment was less about farming techniques and more about confronting a shifting paradigm within himself. What do you really want to achieve, Jimmy, beyond the farm? Nathan's gaze anchored him in place, an invitation to reveal the depths of his aspirations, a threshold between fear and clarity. The question hung in the air like a sheet of fog, dense and challenging. Jimmy's mind raced at the implications. Beyond the farm. The notion startled him, shaking loose fragments of dreams he hadn't dared to articulate. He hesitated, feeling exposed under Nathan's steady gaze, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. "Honestly," he replied, his voice dropping to a whisper, "I want to prove to myself that I can build something lasting. A legacy, I guess. My family struggled, and I don't want to just survive. I want to thrive, to innovate." Nathan's expression shifted, a mix of approval and encouragement as he drew closer. That's the mindset you need. But legacy isn't just about what you leave behind. It's about how you build it, how you engage with others, and the values you instill in the process. Are you ready to pivot, Jimmy? He nodded, although the reality of what that meant sent ripples of uncertainty through him. Nathan's probing eyes hinted at his expectations, and fear gripped Jimmy's heart a little tighter. What if he wasn't ready? "What's holding you back?" Nathan pressed, his voice deftly peeling back layers of Jimmy's self-imposed limitations. Sometimes admitting what scares you is the first step toward confronting it. The connection between them shifted as Jimmy felt the raw edge of vulnerability. "I guess I fear the future," he admitted, his voice choked with suppressed emotion. "This farm, it's my sanctuary, but it's also tethered to my past. What if I fail? What if I can't change it?" "Failure is a teacher, but fear, it can paralyze you," Nathan responded, gently yet firmly. "You have to decide if you're going to let it fuel your drive or keep you locked in place. You've already taken the first step by opening up. Let's build on that." Something clicked inside Jimmy as he engaged with Nathan's challenge. He was tired of being held back by doubt. The conversation swirling through his mind, filled with abstract plans and distant aspirations, began to sharpen into clarity. Perhaps Nathan was right. He had allowed fear to become a fixture in his life, masquerading as caution. If he was going to change the trajectory of his farm, he needed a plan. And more importantly, he needed to confront the specter of his own fears head-on. "Can you help me figure out a concrete plan?" Jimmy asked, a new resolve coloring his voice. "On how to start implementing these strategies and move toward that legacy. I want to transform this farm, and I want to do it right." The gleam in Nathan's eyes suggested he had anticipated this moment. "Absolutely. Let's break this down. What's The first thing you want to tackle? Sustainable practices? Finding new markets? Soybeans. The word escaped Jimmy's mouth unbidden, an instinct he hadn't realized was lurking beneath. I've been thinking of experimenting with organic soybeans. They have a good market potential, and if I can manage the transition right? Nathan's smile widened. Then let's build from that. Research organic practices. Connect with farmers who have made the shift. Find out about grants available for transitioning. The planning phase is crucial. Every small step counts toward bigger gains. The intensity of their discussion transformed, each new hint of actionable insight propelling Jimmy forward. He could feel walls crumbling, replaced with scaffolding of new ideas and possibilities. As the conversation continued, strategies took shape in his mind, illuminating a path forward that filled him with daring hope. Just as the cafe buzzed with life around them, a familiar tension twisted in his stomach. Uncertainty lurked like a slow-moving storm, threatening to dampen this newfound clarity. What if the crash and burn of past failures came screaming back like a vengeful echo? As Jimmy wrestled with the internal conflict, Nathan shifted the conversation. I can help you with more than just plans. We can bring in resources, leverage networking opportunities, and work on integrating those sustainable practices. Let's combine vision with action, but we must also tackle the fear of setbacks. A brief silence fell, the weight of the world on Jimmy's shoulders becoming palpable. He was standing on the brink of transformation, confronting not just the challenge of reviving his farm, but also his own inner demons. Deep down, the truth simmered. Real progress meant accepting the possibility of failure. Jimmy drew a deep breath, ready to acknowledge that confronting these doubts was part of the journey. Let's do it then. I'm ready to explore whatever it takes. Nathan leaned in with palpable energy. Good, we're just getting started. And remember, confronting these fears often leads to the most remarkable discoveries. Prepare yourself, Jimmy. I sense something big waiting for you on the horizon. As Jimmy focused on the path ahead, excitement and apprehension wove together into a complex tapestry of anticipation. Nathan's words hung in the air, a promise and a challenge intertwined, stirring something profound within him. Could this road lead to uncovering hidden aspects of himself, areas of strength he hadn't yet realized? His pulse raced with the possibilities, but beneath the excitement lay an unresolved tension. What exactly did Nathan mean by something big? The question left a trail of thirst for understanding. The moment shifted, thick with unsaid truths and the urgency of needing to know. Deep down, Jimmy sensed that the true journey was only beginning, and the revelation of his potential lay just waiting to be discovered. The following weeks unfolded with an intensity Jimmy had never known. The promise of transformation loomed larger with each passing day, pushing him to his limits and rekindling a spark of unwavering determination. He threw himself into learning, absorbing insights from Nathan's expertise and applying them to the sprawling fields that had long cradled his dreams. With each early morning rise, he felt a shift within himself, palpable yet surreal. The sun spilled over the horizon like liquid gold, illuminating the rows of crops that now carried the weight of his revitalized ambition. Together with Claire, they began outlining an organic transition plan for his farm, balancing new agricultural practices with the foundation of his family's legacy. This alignment of past and future solidified his resolve to build something genuine, a farm that thrived not only in profit but also in community respect. Yet, as he dove deeper into these changes, old fears reared their heads. Doubts clung like stubborn thorns. What if the transition didn't yield the expected bounty? What if he failed? Unconsciously, he'd conditioned himself to tread cautiously, having inherited a legacy steeped in struggle and uncertainty. Could he truly break the cycle and forge a new path? One afternoon, armed with renewed courage, Jimmy stood in the ever-expanding field of healthy greens, feeling the weight of a decision pressing heavily upon his conscience. "This is the moment to own it," he murmured to himself, recalling Nathan's reminders that failure was not the enemy. He reached for his phone and dialed Nathan, excitement charged in his voice when he heard him pick up. "Jimmy, great to hear from you. What's on your mind?" "I'm ready to take the next step. I've been thinking we should set up a community meeting, share the vision of sustainable practices, and build that engagement," he declared, excitement bubbling to the surface. "I want the neighbors to see this as more than just my farm. I want them to understand that together we can impact the community." "That's exactly the kind of leadership I knew you had in you," Nathan replied, his tone brimming with encouragement. Structured conversations with fellow farmers took shape like gentle waves cresting into the shore. He was becoming the leader, an unexpected role that challenged him to let go of the fear that had shackled him for so long. Over community dinners and open forums held in the barn, he engaged his neighbors, inviting them into the dream that was rapidly morphing into reality. With each meeting, the connections deepened, and skepticism transformed into shared hope. Jimmy listened as his neighbors expressed unvoiced fears and aspirations, grasping the collective yearning for something beyond survival. Together, they envisioned the farm as a model of regenerated resilience, one that could nourish not only the earth, but also rekindle spirits within their tight-knit community. As the soil absorbed the late summer rains that fell like a blessing, Jimmy's fingers danced over spreadsheets and plans. After weeks of preparation, the day of the community meeting finally arrived. The barn erupted with warmth and positive energy, filled with the scent of freshly baked goods and laughter. Standing at the front, Jimmy surveyed the faces illuminated by the golden glow of lantern light, realizing the stakes had never felt higher. He took a deep breath, recalling the words of both his grandmother and Nathan, owning the narrative, and began to speak. "Thank you all for being here. This isn't just about saving my farm. It's about creating an opportunity for us, for our children, and for the future we want to leave behind," he proclaimed, his voice steady and clear. "As farmers, we have the power to change the narrative around how we grow our food, how we make a living, and how we invest in sustainability as a community." The room buzzed with energy, and he could see the shift, a sense of belief weaving through the audience. As ideas flew back and forth, he watched friendships building, partnerships forming, and hope taking root beneath their feet. His vision of a community united in shared purpose felt less like a distant dream and increasingly tangible, blossoming into what was almost within reach. By the end of the meeting, people left with renewed determination, ready to invest in the future and lend their hands to cultivate something truly remarkable. While fears still lurked like shadows, clearer tunnel visions had overtaken them, bringing newfound confidence. Over time, he began implementing systems that not only optimized his yields, but galvanized the neighborhood into a coalition advocating for sustainability. Farmers pooled resources, and together they explored organic certifications, applied for grants, and diversified produce offerings. The collective commitment shifted the landscape and altered the course of Jimmy's life in a way he had never envisioned. A year later, standing before an expanse of lush, vibrant crops flourishing under the sun, he felt an overwhelming sense of satisfaction. The farm was breathing, its rhythm harmonizing with the hearts of those who worked the land. News of his transformation spread beyond the community. Jimmy became a recognized figure in local agricultural advocacy conferences, where he shared the story of resurgence, fortitude, and authentic connections. No longer just a struggling farmer weighed down by expectations, he transformed into a confident leader, embodying the very spirit of resilience his ancestors would have admired. As he spread his arms wide to embrace the fields, the sun setting in a magenta blaze, he understood his legacy was becoming more than just survival. He had created an enduring model of cultivation, connectedness, and sustainability for future generations. His heart swelled with gratitude, an undeniable evolution from self-doubt to self-affirmation, and he committed to forever nurturing both the land and the kinship it fostered. The journey had revealed the deeper truth. Every drop of rain, every seed sown, and every life touched was an emblem of change not just for himself, but an entire community united under the promise of new beginnings. This was it. He had achieved what he once thought impossible. Now, as you soak in Jimmy's inspiring journey of success and transformation, you need to subscribe now to keep experiencing exclusive emotional stories just like this. Leave a like now to aid the algorithm and share these messages far and wide to those who need a glimmer of hope. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Jimmy's remarkable evolution. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who could use a boost of inspiration. Your support is crucial.